faces that I've come to love and know from other situations and events. So welcome again, everyone. The concept that I wanted to share with today, to me, is so basic. In fact, to me, it is at the core of anything and everything I've done in my spiritual adult life. I'll put it that way. I have history that we won't go into today about my childhood experiences, but it was in 1970, January of 1972, that I was reintroduced. Sorry. So I was, January 1971, I was reintroduced to my angels and shared this basic technique was shared with me, and it has been my foundation for everything. So I know from many friends over the many years, there are lots of tools and things that people use to help clear their auric field, to become centered, and to help discharge what people think of as negative energy or unpleasant energies. So all of those are wonderful, and I've used many, if not all of them. But to me, what Spirit has shared with me from the very beginning of my journey was that we are the tool. We are the primary tool. Our breath that we can be conscious with is our really primary tool within the body to bring all of it into life with us and into the expansions that we are hoping to have beyond the mundane. So what I'd say before I show you this, some of you probably have seen me do this or versions of this, and some of you may have learned it, something like it for yourselves. That's wonderful. I want to support that
Breath, huh?
intention. It's the intention, probably before the breath, even or in the breath is the intention. So in my basic, my starting place is it's a 3-point process. It's not necessarily one in front of or before the other, but they move into simultaneous. And one is relaxation breath. Another is intention. And the other is using visualization or imagination, for some people might call that, who don't feel like they're visual, and so using all the physical tools of it would be
Open notes.
I use the light in my hands while I'm visualizing all of that light. I say out loud, if I'm by myself, or if I choose, or in silently, my intention or affirmation, and let's just see from there. So, beginning with the light and the energy of the hands. Many of you are healers, Reiki healers, and many aspects of knowing this. I like to shake my hands, which some people say, well, that's static electricity. Call it what you will, it's energy, or rub them to get the energy feeling like I can sense it and feel it between the very palms of my hands, for example. It's just sort of that field of energy that we all are living in. And sometimes we do lots of ritual to even arrive to this point, and it doesn't require a lot, in my opinion. So that's number one piece. I don't shake my wrist like I used to because a little arthritis in the thumb area, so it's not as tricky, but that's either way. Now, with this, I say my words, and I'm going to give you some understanding around that is, in the name of the God within, or the God I am, I cleanse my body, I cleanse my soul, I cleanse my body, I cleanse my mind, I cleanse my soul. And so it can be that you just say in the name of love, or as love, or in the Christ, however, whatever feels to you like you're calling upon what is the highest energy that you can relate with. And while those two things are going, I will gently, not in force, just either touching very lightly or just above the crown chakra. I will, like, parting the veil, and then over the crown, the round of the throat chakra. In the name of the God within, I cleanse my body, I cleanse my mind, I cleanse my soul. And all this coming from the few breaths of deep relaxation, of the letting go. Whatever and however that is, this is a process to help go deeper into relaxation, to go deeper into the state of letting go. So it's just like you have to be completely relaxed in order for that. It is part of the process if we're patient with it. And so in the name of God, I am, cleanse my body, cleanse my mind, cleanse my soul. And for me, especially when I'm coming from stress, or it's been a while since I've moved myself into this technique, I give myself permission to do it as many times as I feel, with a breath in between, to check myself of centeredness and the sense of my auric field becoming more clear and expanded. How simple is that? It is the basis, and I'll go into some other ways in which that becomes easier. I don't want to inspire you to start with shortcuts. I want to know that after 50 years, there are many moments when I have shortcuts to this. I'm not physically always doing it, and you don't have to. It's a plus, it helps. Sometimes I just touch my third eye, my throat, upper heart. Sometimes I just, I have my shortcuts, but I'm not recommending to do that when you're learning to trust yourself in the process of how simple this is. So, as God I am, I cleanse my body, I cleanse my mind, I cleanse my soul. Does the soul need cleansing? Is something people have asked. Your spirit does not. Your soul, which is connected to all other lives and all other bodies, will benefit from acknowledging that you're going into not just the physical, emotional, and mental bodies, but beyond that, to all of your bodies, so that they align. I hope that makes some sense. I'll maybe give you another demonstration of that in a little bit. What I know about some people's beliefs over the years, believe me, I've trod on many paths along with people, and experimenting to get familiar and compassionate and empathetic to many walks of spiritual pursuit. And some of the people that I've met have belief in the external, whether they were coming out of a traditional Catholic kind of vein, where the saints and the angels or such have all the power, or other esoteric, where the masters have all the power, where there's something, again, that we need to invoke from outside, or trust in from outside, that's going to do that for us in its assistance, its tools. Not really, it's not going to sustain. So very popular these days is sage, which I love to eat it and cook with it. I'm not a fan of burning anything. I just have very sensitivity to my whole breathing apparatus, and when I'm around it, I really have to practice another step of deep breathing so that I can integrate that. But it's a tool, and it can help clear energy. But you are the one always in charge of maintaining and expanding that light. Always. Nothing is good. The Spirit has said years ago to me, and they may have said, somebody may have heard before, and those of you who are old enough, you'll remember there was a commercial for deodorant that went like this: one shot and I'm good for the whole day. That's not how it works in the energy work of your spirit and your light. You can't just apply a technique or a deodorant or a sage or an essential oil or anything and expect that it has done it and now you're good to go for the rest of life, because we are human 3D, 5D, however we are dancing in the world, where we are always attracting and moving in and through a sea of energy. It could be thoughts and feelings, emotions that we don't generate, but if we don't have the clarity, it starts to tickle the part that is not resolved and centered in that moment. And that's a nice way to say it. It goes beyond a tickling if we haven't continued to do some of this work. And I'm going to get to that piece in a little bit with you. So how often do you do this then? If you can't just do it, like start your day with it and you're good until whenever, the next day or the next morning or night even. Well, it's a practice. And so like any practice, you do it what makes most sense to you when you can. It certainly doesn't require more than a couple of minutes usually. I think the longest I've spent in the process of trusting that I've reached that state is up to 5 minutes. I've spent longer in deeper expanded meditative states, obviously, but usually it's a matter of seconds to minutes, very, very brief. So how often? If it's very brand new to the idea of that, I say try incorporating this 3 times a day, like as you wake up in the morning, maybe midday at your lunch meal or before your lunch and before you go to bed. If you're more conscious to be aware to check in with yourself, you begin to learn that you practice this whenever you feel something shifted and you're off. Often that happens to all of us. Oh, if any of us haven't been triggered by something in the news or the global stuff in the last few years, we're very enlightened, and I bow to you for that, because I've been triggered, and most people I know have been triggered, however that goes, into full sadness or rage or disappointment, and those are the obvious moments when I need to come back and do like that clearing for myself. The not so obvious moments may be driving in your car and just that one little, those, how we may think some people don't deserve to drive, or we may think, however it occurs that people are driving too fast, too slow, too this, too that, they're not signaling, and it's a place for many of us to get mildly annoyed, if not full-blown rage. We pray that never happens to any of us to experience that full-blown so-called road rage, right? That's a common place. So you're driving in the car, 2 hands at best on your steering wheel, 1 hand, most of the time. Well, I did in the very beginning, but I no longer am concerned if people are going to come look into my car window and watch me do this. I used to feel like I would pretend like I'm stretching or something in case people were watching. I mean, thinking back to when I was in my 20s and I was just being silly with it, to me. Driving in Chicago, where I grew up, and I drove to work and all these places on the freeways there, the things I saw people doing in their car, this is the least of what anything is going to be. They may be curious or not. I actually think the most bizarre was watching somebody practice his trumpet on the freeway with the little note thing sticking in his trumpet. And if you're watching your note thing and you're doing this, how are you doing this? There's people have stories about what happens in the illusion of your complete separation from the rest of the world behind the windows of your vehicle. So if you're driving and you get that moment, first is just have that deep breath, and that's maybe where the shortcut, because you're not going to close your eyes, right, and kind of visualize your inner center in that way, but just affirm and give yourself permission to begin to clear and let that go. Hundreds of times a day. How often do I do it? Hundreds of times a day. Is it because I'm so unaligned It's because there are circumstances that I become aware of that, if ignored, could start to attract other things which diminish the wholeness of my field. So what we're doing, something like this, we're not shaking our hands to shake off the negativity and get rid of the negativity or to get the darkness out of us. That's not the purpose. It is using the light of your hand to clear, to smooth, and to what we call compact the field, meaning that it's not scattered, it's full. It can be out to here, obviously. It's full of light, not just, and every little thing that occurs that we don't clear in the moment of it begins to put like this little ding, this little divot, tiny divot, like in the auric field. And after a number of those, that field becomes full of those little holes in a sense, or to become deeper and deeper. And why that is important is because as your field shrinks, sometimes in the need we feel for protection, we put shields on our chakras, we close ourselves. And I'm going to share in this today why that is probably not healthy for your body and your physical or emotional or mental body to do that, and not unnecessary. So I encourage you to practice that now with me, having a deep breath, letting go, and visualize or let yourself feel that energetic light in your hands. And in your mind, in the intention, affirmation, decree, however you wish it to be, in your highest, command your God presence in that light to clear, to center and align everything, all those bodies. And how will you know? Give you some possibilities of how you will know, depending upon your spiritual communication internally and externally tool. What is your highest tool? You will know it in different ways. You may feel it like goosebumps or chills on yourself. You may feel it as warmth, kind of touching and expanding. You may sense a new clarity in like the tones, the inner tones of your nature. You will notice when you have sufficiently given yourself that tool and relaxation, you will notice the calm and you will notice the peace. And if you haven't received that after the first few moments of it, again, some people have asked, why just these upper few chakras? Well, that's the simplest explanation I can say. Is not that it's never important to clear everything, but we're not soaping up and cleaning, dirt in ourselves. We're just becoming so full of light. There's no room for anything but that light. It just moves, it transmutes, it becomes clear. And when you stand in a shower, a bathing shower or under a waterfall, and the energy moves through your crown center and just overflows the whole body by the nature of what comes here at your crown, right? For the most part. This is what some call the silver cord connection, your connection to all your other light bodies and to spirit. It works. So we don't have to do all that. If there's a particular place in the body that you're holding tension, of course, using that light, using whatever symbols and Reiki and other healings that you know to do, give yourself that gift. Most of it, though, through the intention and through the hand of light, will be effective to simply calm that peace and to allow it to reintegrate into the oneness again. So God, I am is part of what I say. Call upon the mighty I am presence to be in this body and fill these bodies. Those are things, those are kind of affirmations. Those are the kind of words and intentions that I use. So, when, how often? As often as you remember, as often as you become aware, ooh, I'm sitting in the stew. Okay. Here's what Spiritual many years ago gave me a lesson about that. If you really feel you have to be in the emotional rage or the grief or anything that reaches a depth, there's nothing wrong with that. Your emotional body has many purposes, and it's not wrong that you feel sometimes those intensities. So they said, especially if it's an indulgence in old memories or old mental ideas that you really have no controls over, set a physical or mental clock for 5 minutes and go full in. Go full in and cry and wail and shout and do, and then thing goes off. Okay, now, God, I am in the name of the light. I am. I cleanse my body. I cleanse my mind. I cleanse my soul. The tighter we become, the more we generally need to address, continue, or stay with that to achieve that state. Where our auric field, we're doing this. We're not shrinking our auric field by touching that physical part of ourselves. We're giving permission to all of it to be free to expand, 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 expand. So this isn't a class on how big is your auric field, and we're not going to have contests about that. But we will know that the larger your field of energy is, the more you are able to address those little divots of dings, emotional, mental dings that happen before they become like really deep triggered and deep seated in our being. Anyone have any questions about this so far? You can unmute if you do, or raise your hand. Okay. So,
Dawn, I have a question.
yes, please.
Janelle, and nice to see you, dear, and thank you for doing this. My question is this a protection as well? In other words, let's say we're going into a crowd. We know that that crowd may not necessarily be a friendly crowd. Is this a protection as well?
Great question, and it's one of the things on my list. Yes, it is. And you are not subject to, what I say, the protection is only as conscious as you stay in your center. For any moment that that crowd or that energy field starts to impact your field, shrink it in any way, become finds the inroad to what part of your own inner consciousness hasn't fully healed yet, and as sort of an attraction point, that's when your protection is only good till that point when you intentionally clear and expand the aura again. But yes, it is protection, but it is not protection from who you are and your simultaneous intention to heal yourself, right? So that's not real clear, but I'm going to get a little more into some of how that works, because I was going to now share using this and to cleanse our home, cleanse our workplace, cleanse our, and I say the word cleanse because it's a commonly used word. Again, it implies cleaning dirt. It's just a word that I don't really want to imply that it's about getting rid of stuff so much as it is moving it to its own place. So that can be like getting rid of. When you get rid of the dirt on your body from a hard, sweaty workout, you're integrating it back into the sea. The water it flows through. All of these, it's not rid of, it's going to another place of its existence. And anything that's not so friendly or is more negative in their vibration will either in your presence become relaxed and ignited in their own love, or they will find that they have to be further away. It just is that way, which is why going into the realizing how we can not only expand our own auric field and become clearer and more centered personally, using this very same tool of light and breath and conscious intent is what we would do for our house, our work, our car, the grocery store, wherever we're going, wherever we're being, to expand that light beyond us. We have our own field, and then we just intend it. So, for example, when I would be working on my house, I start with where I am. And for me, it worked to create in my mind a visual white tornado. And I would just see that starting from me and going like twirling all around the corners of my room where I was, and around and center back in me. And then I would expand it out to the other rooms in my house or in my car or wherever I was. I liked the idea of the white tornado sort of being the light, just moving that energy to either integration, transmutation, or so that it is not banished in a way by me. It's only extended the field so far that where light is, only light can be. So it becomes light, or it finds its own realm to be in. So the other thing I do, of course, is I've gone physically when there's been a lot of trauma, let's say in part of my home, I've gone through physically, and I just do that energetic blessing on every wall and every corner. And I do that in a way that's extending this, but this using my physical healing light as well. I think, yes, I do my place where I work. I don't go to the other office anymore. I haven't been too much, very, very few times in the last few years. So my home, I do. My car, I do. And I actually put that all the way out, like, and angels, ask your help in putting this light all the way down the highway and in all directions around me, so that I have a clear and open path. I will, if I've gone into a store or into a retail environment, I try to put that in, make sure my field is large enough and intend that every aisle or every place I'm walking, it's going with me and moving that energy deeper in. I mean, somebody said to me, I'm laughing even though I have great respect for the question. What if my energy, if I go into the grocery store, is so powerful that everybody leaves the grocery store? So that just doesn't feel morally right, because they have to shop and other people have a right. I go, yeah, that's not really how it works. At least because only if you have the intention that you're judging and blaming people for not being clear and in their whatever their stuff is, or unfriendly energies, as you were saying, Jeanette, that judgment is really not going to keep you clear either. So there's a point of wanting to be knowing that our intention is not to be rid of people, to be judging and fearing, because as soon as that is the seed of what we're doing, we're really still shrinking our field. That's saying we have no light. It's that we're shrinking that and becoming more susceptible to the thoughts and feelings. So speaking of grocery stores, this I've said before to some people who've done other work with me. Have you ever gone in to shop and you've got a mental list or even a physical list of things you want to buy, but all of a sudden, for some reason, you go, oh, that looks really good, and you put something in your cart that you didn't have on your list? Or, wow, I haven't had a donut in forever, and it goes in your cart. And those kinds of impulses are almost always coming from that sea of energy, and the people walking before you or next to you in the aisles are thinking, oh, I gotta have a donut, or oh, it's been so long since I've had this, or whatever. I mean, we're just, that's thought. We're not going to make the world stop having thoughts and feelings or emotions. So the more clear we are, we're not going to have that impact us in a way that becomes, that's not so bad and intrusive that we bought something we didn't have the intention for, generally speaking, because then we get to see, are we going to consume it or not, right? But imagine that throughout your day, other people's thoughts and feelings randomly and they relate to you based on your, I don't know, maybe some would say your inner child or your unhealed patterns, or however it becomes impacted to, oh, it feels like your kind of thought or emotion or feeling. It feels like you because there's a part of you that relates to that in that way. So I've literally seen, done exercises to where I've looked at other people's field. And a good practice for me to learn to see auras, because I'm not generally very visual. I've practiced it over the years. But for me to do it, I have to remove my glasses so that I'm not focused and go to that soft kind of focus and look. But I would be in a small group and I would have people stand in front of the group in front of a white background and ask them quietly. They would be asked and I'd be looking quietly. Think of every anger or negative thing you've ever thought of in your life. Just be in it for a moment or two. And other people would say, if they didn't know that's what was happening, they would read, oh, it's the aura, it's kind of wavy, or it's this or that, or they'd see little spots, And so it's not bad until all of that becomes part of who we begin to believe we are, and puts us in the place of feeling like depression or other emotional energies that are more and more tricky to move beyond. So we're in this sea of thoughts and feelings all the time. And when it coincides with being in an intention of love, of light, of our peace, those thoughts and feelings, those are the pathways for our angels, for our spirit guides and teachers, for masters to connect with us. That's why when we're doing this, you may feel goosebumps or chills or that sense of warmth. It's that we are that. And I think there's a biblical saying that the angels are upon me and there's a quickening of the flesh. There is a sense that when light attracts light, when it becomes really close into your field, it'll be like an electrical charge. So it can feel electrical, it can feel lots of ways like that. So when you're in that connected zone, wow, isn't it fun when you're saying, oh, I really need a message about something. You turn on your radio in the car and out comes the song that answers everything you've just been thinking about or praying about. Or in the old days, for me, I would be in a bookstore and a book would literally fly off the shelf, it seemed, and hit me. I go, oh, yeah, there it is. So those moments, those synchronistic moments of connection happen more and more when we stay in that realm of light connects with light, with the energies of spirit. So let me see. I kind of went off a bit. All right. So
may I ask a question, a quick
yes,
one?
yes, please.
I grew up where you had frankincense, myrrh. My mom would incense the whole house to clear the energy.
Yes.
What we are doing here with our intention and our breath basically equal to that, or I mean, I think it's even more, but do you really need to do that?
All right. That's a good question. Well, it's a tool, as I said. Those are tools, and they are very effective with your intention. And most people using those tools, whether it's incense or oil, essential oils, or the sage or crystals and stones, however that would be, are already doing their shortcut sometimes into the place where they've made the intention that is where you now have temporarily assigned an extension of your inner power to help with those things. You have belief and faith in that. And when the faith is there, that will help. But instead of you to do all that without you being part of it is even more temporary. There's none of that will hold, while the world goes on. It will, it's a support. So personally, I have talked about that wanting to be around smoke. Maybe some of that's still an unhealed part of growing up, and where the incense at the church was so thick and heavy that I was just choking all the time from it. So when I found frankincense oil, it took me a few times to use that before I didn't have that response of, oh, that's horrible, to realize I really love that scent and I love the energy of it. So that's an adjunct to me. Any of those things are supportive adjunct to clear a bigger space. It may be more practical in some ways to add that, especially if other people are going to participate in that space, that you can't, you don't want your 10-year-old child to run out the door screaming because his demons just got want to run away from the light. That's almost an extreme, but believe me, sadly, I have stories about that from my life experience. Um, so again, yeah, to do that with faith, any of those tools are going to serve you. But I'm encouraging how simple it is to become clearer and clearer, and to the more frequent and conscious we are about how we are in our own bodies in that alignment, we're going to stay close to, well, how is it say, on top of it. We're going to be there with it. So I have nothing against any of those things, but to me, they aren't as necessary. If you have them and you enjoy them, then include them in rituals, include them in that place of where, like, it triggers the reminder of your inner faith or your oneness, and it's all good. It's all good.
Thank you.
I mean, when you're in fresh flowers get delivered to your home or your office, and you smell those flowers, and it fills you with love and joy, and it sparks memories of other times you smelled those flowers, or you were given flowers, or that you gave, or you were in nature and you smelled the flowers. So all of those are tools, and they're all part of our life and nature, in and around us. And the tools of the crystals and the sage and the incense and the oils and all these other things, that they're there from our connection to all these things in nature. Will an obsidian stone you hold in your hand help you to stay grounded? Oh, it probably will, if you believe it will, and it has the power to encourage that in you. And is it needed? It's needed as much as you want and need it. It's not needed because you don't have the power. It's needed because it supports your power and reminds you of your power. So talking about that place in your auric field and the protection aspect. When we are in mostly our emotional and mental bodies, and fear or anxiety and depression and all of that is happening in those bodies, or unawareness, to be simply unaware, our field of light shrinks. Aside from the idea that, yes, it gets all full of interesting divity kind of like or places in it, in the field, it will shrink. And sometimes we intentionally have been taught or believe we need to do that to protect ourselves. We don't want that emotional stuff. So we put the shield over our heart center. We put the shield over our different chakras. We zip the aura. We do all these interesting techniques that we have been maybe taught or heard of. And as I said, the truth is, while that's happening, while you're doing that, you are in a state where you've lessened your field of conscious awareness of what's there. So I call it the aware, alert, and alarmed stages of your field of light. The more full your field is, you can become aware of the things that are looking at it, or starting to enter in, or you can be observing and aware. it becomes that field where you're not necessarily in a judgment or fear of anything. You're just getting to say, oh, I'm aware, stuff's happening. Deep breath, clear, expand more. Now, when that starts to be whatever, something you've sensed there didn't resolve itself, it becomes slightly less in your field. And now that's your place where I call alert. It's like, okay, wait, what's going on? Something's happening. Something is happening. What do I need to do about this? And unless you go to the inner centering and cleansing and clearing and aligning yourselves, what's likely to happen is you trigger the patterns of response, which would be fight and flight and those kinds of things. When you are at alarm, the alarm is ringing so big, so loud, it's because the energy is coming towards you and it's now right here. There is physical threat, emotional, mental, energetic threat to you because you have to tighten that. So because sometimes people who are consciously trying to hold that energy space really close, they have to fight even harder. And they might be believing that the dark is out to attack me and the dark is out to get me. And I have people doing the psychic attack. And no, it's not necessarily that. It's that whatever has been going on, you got lost in the part of yourself that forgot its power and drifted in a place of your uncentered consciousness. So there's a purpose to do this frequently. There's a purpose to keep expanding your auric field so that when you know gurus and masters and people who have walked on the planet and who have seemed to have nothing seems to get them all riled up. And even if they do get upset, they're laughing about it or they're joking about it. There's like, we've seen enlightened types of individuals who don't seem to get like irate in the place of they've lost their center, but only irate or angry or loud or as a tool. They're using even sometimes those energetics in their expanded sphere as a tool of communication because that's what's most highly important to resolve or to awaken somebody. You ever hear of the kind of master that goes around slapping people because they're trying to wake them up? Yes, I've had that happen. We've all had the energetic experience of ignoring something and our guides, our angels are trying to whisper. We go, what? Never mind. And so it gets boom, boom, boom until bang, we feel like spiritually sort of slapped upside the head, right? That 2x4, as they say, because we were ignoring the wake-up call. All of that becomes easier to get the guidance, becomes easier to stay clear in the sea of confusion that seems to be reflected in our world. And some would say more than ever from our lifetime anyway. It's challenging. It's very challenging. With so much polarity and so much hatred and anger and fear and in the name of the God I am, cleanse my body, cleanse my mind, cleanse my soul. So an energetic tool you can relate to anger has a purpose, but not going to be very effective if you are in that state, uncentered and unclear of the light. A place of sadness and grief has its purpose, but it will not, when there's an indulgence, was what Spirit was telling me is an indulgence in that, meaning that you're not letting that go through you in a way that is loving, compassionate, and still keeping your light expanded so that the healing can continue. You know, you're setting yourself up for more pain. Questions? You got it. Hey, everybody, if you don't want other people to see you, but if they're doing this, they won't see you because they're going to do it for themselves. Let's all try this again collectively and, imagine what we're doing to itself and to the planet when we're doing this in the name of however you intend. As you complete that and you breathe, you feel those, there's no shame or wrongness in any way. If you've gone through this 2 or 3 times and you still somehow don't feel aligned and centered and clear, so be it. No, no one is judging here about any of that, because it's important that you don't think again. It's just like applying deodorant and you're good for the whole day. It's just what you need in the moment. And when I say the shortcuts, yes, sometimes one-handed in my car, I'll just touch my chakra points with that intention and my eyes open, trusting the light. Sometimes not even there, wherever I am, I'm in that and I just draw that energy this way through me. Sometimes I don't use the physical, but I recommend, especially while you're practicing and learning to discern your own field of light and the chills and all those other wonderful things that could be happening, that you don't shortcut. I'm saying 50 years, and how many times a day? Hundreds of times a day. Unless I'm asleep. And then who knows, I'm doing other kinds of things. So yes,
Dawn,
yes, please.
Why do I
when,
see you?
when we, Rich, I'm right
Yep.
here.
Yes, Rich.
When we react in the present to past stored emotions, how does that clearing process work? What does that look like?
That's a very good question, because we don't, again, we're not trying to clear this to get rid of that. We want to clear so that we can actually be more effective in the healing of that inner trauma and that inner memory, and transmute all of that into love, which, so that place of clearing does not make that stop. It just makes that trigger
I don't hear you doing.
become less, and you're able to start to actually do deeper clearing of that emotion. You're actually able to do blessing and healing upon that emotional trigger. Have you?
So you're saying not to get rid of it, because that is a process of resistance. So that actually places that emotion deeper, more solidly. So you're
Exactly.
saying greet it with love. Okay,
Exactly
like the blue
so.
sword of
Yeah,
truth.
otherwise, we're loaded up, unfortunately, with suppressed and repressed experiences, thoughts, emotions, because that's what we were taught to do, or that's what we felt we needed to do to be safe, in whatever circumstances from this and other lifetimes. Sometimes we just are sort of energetically filled with those things. So the triggering of that is not something we want to fear. We want to learn to use the breath even more completely to bring that in. So that's another whole kind of thing where I teach about the holy breath and the variations on the breath, depth and speed and shallowness and all those kinds of things, with the intentions to integrate those experiences. One quick thing is with what I remembered, it's part of what I do when I'm doing a session for someone individually or in a group with breathing is, tears come up, or a feeling of their memory of sadness or something, it comes up. I said, you can cry and breathe at the same time. Or laughter. You can laugh and breathe at the same time. Mostly we cut off our breath because we're in we're not connecting our breath. So that's another thing, but it's absolutely true that we don't want to do this so that we repress. We want to do this so that we become clear. And intentionally, if it's not an appropriate moment to process through that, this is what I've done. I'm in a job interview and something gets, I can't, stop bawling and stop having this happen. So I just give myself permission to consciously repress that. Say, I give myself permission, and I promise I'm going to address this later. Stuff happens. If I'm in a movie theater, well, gosh, remember those days? I haven't been in years. But if I'm in a movie with other people around and we're watching something and it's like whatever happens, sometimes it's the sadness stuff, or mostly it'll be like the violence and the stuff I don't enjoy as much. I start I consciously deepen my breath, deep and a little quicker than slow, so that I can be aware to move that through me rather than to try to say, either fall into it or not. But that's an excellent question, Rich. True. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Despina? Sorry.
Yeah, I have a question.
All right, sorry, Despina, you're on mute. 1 second, Victoria. There we go.
Based on what Mr. Patterson just said, when someone says to you that we do this session and we are going to help get rid of all your past, lives or whatever bad stuff, let's say, to be basically gone. What I hear you saying is that that is not what we're trying to do. We're trying to, we are basically, you're accepting it and letting it go pretty much.
Well, each situation will be unique around that. I can't say for sure that absolutely, because we draw people into our life who are an assistant to us where we are stuck, and they can help clear for us. They can help discharge, and they might help remove temporary, but it's all going to be as temporary as you clean your house. Again, I'm only going to say this, I'm not super biblical, but things stick in my head that about, I think it was Jesus, Yeshua, who had said about casting out demons. And if they've not cleaned house, the demons will come back. So we need to be aware that all of that is to give us the space that we can now be more conscious, more expanded, more aware that when and if patterns come tickling into our field, we're able to be in the place of blessing with them instead of indulging in them. That's the quick way I have to say that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Victoria, what was your question?
Yeah, for getting to sleep at night, if you feel scared or you feel anxious, just doing any one of those breathing techniques to just clear it, what
I would say, yeah, it's about, I have nights where I'm not so much in the anxious part, but in the mental whirliness, like, oh, I really need to do this, I need to do that, oh, I could do this, I could compare these I go through weird mental loops at times, which I'm up for hours in. So my way of that is to get out of my bed, to sit in a place, not where I'm going to try to struggle sleep, but where I'm going to just go through those cleansing and clearing techniques, breathe, slow my breath, slow my mind, slow all of that rushed energy, and stay in the affirmation, stay in the prayerfulness, the visualization and the prayerfulness of it. There are times when I'm in that state for 20 minutes, not because I've reached a state of meditational bliss and I'm staying in that for 20 minutes, it's because that's how much, when I've had those nights, for example, that I'm just continually reminding myself when those thoughts are coming in, that I'm acknowledging them. I bow to my thoughts, I bow to my feelings and emotions, and I just move through it. So it's not 100%. I don't know the full remedy. All of us are unique, but I certainly recommend when we can do that in 20 minutes without medication, great. If we need medication, then we bless the God in the medication. You know what I mean? That's in all that stuff that gets us to where we need to be. It's all in service. So thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Is this too simple? Yeah, it's very simple.
Dawn, I thought.
And what about all the other things we've learned for healing and for clearing and all these wonderful tools like we talked about, or that we looked at the idea of other people who can help assist us to clear and to do it. Well, that's when we get a physical massage, we have somebody putting their, consciously or not, putting their light on us, and they're coaching us to breathe through it when they're doing deep muscle stuff, so that is we can use the tools, all the tools of someone else to assist us, but they are not where the power is. We bless them in a sense with temporary extension of our own power to help us be in that relaxation, to help us be reminded of our power and our clearing capacity and our loving peace that we are as nature. So while I'm here, I want to get to something in a minute, but while I'm here with this, I want to acknowledge everyone who has received initiation and training and are in practice of various healing modalities, healing services, whether it be called Reiki or 1,000 other names. It's all the same because it's by the intention of the light and the healing transmissions and reception that we engage with others. I just want to acknowledge that because sometimes it's not that we don't need extra help. I've had some physical stuff this year, ongoing for the last 3 years. I had my hip replaced a few months ago, and I've regained things that I had not been able to do for a long time. I can now do some meal prepping. I can do things which maybe people have a sense of taking for granted. So I've got assistance with other people preparing and other services that provide my meals. And I don't feel less than as a person because I did that or I requested that. So however that is that we want others to assist us, which brings me to that point of doing for others that has not been their request, conscious request. Can I say, no, time out. It is spiritually never appropriate to send this as a healing energy of any form of healing, I believe, but the spiritual cleansing, visualization, or intention when it has not been requested, because that is an invasion of light that is not maybe their timing, their best. They can't receive it, or they in so much whatever, there's resistance and it just is not serving. It's inappropriate almost always. And with that, for children, for the most part, around the age of 7, where science and traditions have given us awareness that that's sort of an age of reason, that's sort of an age of a being more self-aware. Somewhere in, give or take a year, maybe in the child's life, that's when you teach them to do it, or you ask them if you can help to do it for them. You still don't take charge of that child's energy field. And for infants and small children, there's mothers and fathers already do this clearing with their children, not even considering it that. Naturally, child is upset. You, with your loving hands, you rub their owie, you rub their forehead, and you just soothe them to sleep, and you're just so gentle in their auric field without even knowing maybe that's what you've been doing. You are holding them. You're just bringing all that love into the reality for them that can start to heal and integrate whatever's was going on, to clear their stuff, whatever's been going on. Pets, of course. Yes, check mark, yes. Do this with your pets. When you are projecting a healing energy like that, or the auric cleansing, if you will, on a pet that seems to somehow react to that or resist that, that's maybe not so wise then. For whatever the consciousness of that animal, they're just saying, I'm not going to say there's a certain particular kind of animal that tends to do that more, but you might know. Animal might be, but I'm just saying, most of the time a pet is in your circumstance and in an agreement to be supporting and helping you be the light and the healer and the wholeness that you are. And so for you to assist them in that way, it's a part of how they will be merging into that healing with you, if that makes sense. So house plants, oh yeah, you know, I read back in the early 1970s, I read The Secret Life of Plants. If any of you have ever heard of that book, it's where science was connecting little electrodes to plants to see how they were responding to different things, including certain kinds of music, or if they were talked to and all that stuff. So I began talking to my plants and spiritually sending them loving energies. And except for living in Arizona, I used to have a wonderful green thumb. Things aren't so easy for me here with the desert, but so there's no thing except the main thing is to be in conscious awareness. And so with that, I wanted to share an interesting little vignette that a very dear friend of mine has had an experience very close to me, and we did this kind of work together a lot. And he told me one day I had the weirdest thing happen. I really got a spiritual lesson smacked up in my face. I said, "What happened, dear?" He said, "I saw this guy standing on a soapbox, Larry, like one of those things with a Bible in his hand or something in his hand, and kind of almost like a mad person ranting and ranting and ranting and whatever." And so he says, "So I decided to send him the light, and I just sent him a clearing on this whole light over his whole being, and he shook and fell off this little thing into the roadway. Blessings for all involved that he didn't get run over by a car, but it was like," he says, "you know, that guy didn't ask for that. I had no business doing that." So that's extreme, but I mean, sometimes we need extreme lessons to get the message to us, what's really going on in life. It's not ours. So sending to the higher self and to the wholeness of the soul that's ready to receive that, sending to the angels of the self, to the soul. There's lots of ways we can do that. That's still supportive and loving, but probably to try to go direct, not wise. Marianne, yes.
Can you ask their higher self if they're open, their higher selves, if they're open to receiving it?
If you have that clear, your own, let's go back and first say, before you do anything for anyone, you've got to be the one that's centered and cleared, right?
Right.
So then, you know, you can get in that communication with that higher self. And if you feel no, then you let go. If you feel yes, then yes, obviously, that's great. And that's why, I mean, you're trusting in that communication link
Mhm.
to the highest is going to be more, the more you play with, in a sense. I say play because I don't want it to be hard work, your own field of energy. And you get to know, you know yourself more than you might have dreamed you could know about who you are. You don't know yourself because of all the intensive years and years of therapy. That's a different kind of knowing yourself, right? But you know yourself, it's right to the essence with sort of side. No, that's how I want to write one. It bypasses in a way some of that other angst work, which needs to be done for many people. I've had my shares of kinds of therapies and supports, but yeah, absolutely. Perfect, Mary. Perfect. Deep breath. Recenter. Information. You want to receive it. You don't have to accept it. You don't have to but a great spiritual teacher told me, again, almost 50 years ago, some thought or idea or teaching or sharing comes at you, it doesn't feel like it sits right. Especially if you believe that it's coming from some state of love. He used to say, file it on a mental shelf somewhere in your consciousness that it'll be retrieved for you in that perfect moment. You don't have to accept it like you're living in it. You know, you can just, you're in this, your wholeness can have room for it, is what he would say. That I would say about another way he said that. Yeah, my relationship with A Course in Miracles changed because I was angry as I was about first reading those first words in that book years and years ago. Everyone sooner or later will take this course. I went, how arrogant, how whatever. I was just rude. I won't tell you the whole story. Some of you know. Let's just say that book didn't stay in my home in a good way. But not too many years later, 2 or 3 years later, it came gifted to me, and a spirit said to me, "Are you ready to read this now?" Oh, darn. Because I knew that even as I was full of that anger about feeling triggered in that moment about some spiritual arrogance, that was my spiritual arrogance doing that. So I was able to say, okay, when I'm ready, it'll be okay. Somewhere it's here and I'll get to it. Um, so whatever I've shared, it doesn't align for you as pieces you can use. Bless you. And I just ask you to give yourself permission to put some parts of this conversation on that little mental shelf where you can find the ways that what I've said or what I've shared integrates with what you already deeply know. Most of you already know what it feels like to be in alignment with spirit. You call on it in many ways. You are in it through prayer and practice. I'm just giving you, I'm hoping, a way to not simplify so much as create a greater ease with getting into and staying in the state that we know is our best state of being. So I have one more thing to share. Let's see, I'm going to share a screen with you if I can remember how to do this. Let's see. Nope, wait, it disappeared.
You're done. Let me see. Let me do it over at this end.
All right, thank you.
You guys see that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think we got it now. All right. So when I first made my announcement on Facebook, over a month ago, I sort of felt guided by spirit to just sort of make this statement. I didn't know what I was going to do about it really. And then they said, yeah, you're going to do this and we'll plan to just do a presentation like this. So, okay. And then I was guided, okay, now just put it on your email list and let everybody know who's not on Facebook that this is going on. And then Spirit said, in a while, I'll tell you what we're going to do next or what we can do next. So this is what they've come up with in communion with me and what I want to share. And that is, all right, so this is here. So the thing was this, Daryl, can you see the whole page? There we go. So there's two pieces of what I'm offering if people want to just kind of practice at another level or go deeper into some of what I'm sharing. And I haven't done this in many years, actually, this kind of work. So the first thing is for anybody who is feeling like they want to go a little bit deeper, a little more personal, but I'm going to make it a small group. It could be from 1 to 5 people, depending on who wants to participate. I've set aside certain times to do a Zoom where we get to cover all the questions that have come up in the practice of it, or we get to cover things like how has it been going? What have you learned? What, just kind of integrate more deeply with all that. And that's all that's optional. And the other thing is an individual spiritual profile, which I used to do before for probably 48 years. I've done this one-on-one with people in cycles of my life. I've made it available. So Spirit saying it's time to make this available. And I would say when someone registers to do this in 2022, and this is the timing is different than I would have done it 40 some years ago. With that permission, I will work with a piece of paper, which I don't have to show you in a moment, but it's where different symbols and different categories are outlined that I check in with my higher self and spirit guides into your higher self and spirit teachers and check certain pieces of information. And some of it you may already know, and some of it will corroborate, and some might have shifted it from what you thought you knew. And some of the key elements of that are outlining your spiritual communication gifts, I call it. And then how many angels or spirit teachers did you come into this embodiment with, in agreement with, and how to connect with them and where they might connect with you if they touch you or come close to your body. Some simple things and a few other pieces as well. there's many ways people do what they call spiritual gifts, and there's many of that. This what I'm speaking of here is our communication gifts or styles of communication that is our more natural ways of communicating with our inner self and our higher self and angels and spirits, teachers. And also it would tend to be how we communicate with others in our world at our most effective way. So that's through clairaudience or hearing, clear hearing, clairsentient, feeling, omniscient, no, clear, one of the word, clairvoyant, clear seeing. And I've got other word in terms of the clarity of it, but it's your knowing, it's your inner knowing. So in this, we would talk more at other length about, I have other classes I've done about the difference between the inner knowing and your gut feeling, and not necessarily the same thing. So we talk about those things and how you can acknowledge what's been developed and how you can develop all of them, which for me, vision was my last, but I've become quite good at parts of it to visualize what I need to inwardly visualize. I couldn't even, people would say, just visualize the color red. I'm like, well, all I could see was the word red. I didn't see the color red for years. So it was practice. And so those are the areas that if people want a one-on-one, that I would do that. That paper, I will have it completed and PDF'd and scanned to you and sent to you to keep and to review and so forth. So if you're feeling that you have already, some of you have already done that, so I don't recommend you necessarily do this right now, that part, the spiritual profile, although we can talk about that if you want to. So is there a 1-2 part? Not necessarily. If you don't want to, you don't want to be part of a small group covering all that, that's fine, but you want to get a one-on-one Zoom, it will be a one-on-one Zoom. That's fine. If you want to do both, that's fine. If you want to do the small group but don't have a need or desire to do that other profile, that's fine. These are just special arrangements of time and investment that Spirit has inspired for me for now. And I'm always open for conversation or questions about that and how to make that work best if you feel the need to play in that realm of me.
So Don, we'll send the link so that people can, peruse it
Exactly.
a little bit more.
So I've made that
more
a private page on our website for those of you who are in the class, and for those people who are not physically in this class, but will have by request viewed the recording of this. So for now, I'm not expanding this into my work schedule in this sense. I have lots of other things Spirit has me in joyful play with right now. So open it up for any last minute questions about this or anything we've covered today. So wonderful to see your beautiful faces and all your great selves. I'm grateful. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for the light you are and that which you bring into all the world.
Thank you for today.
Thank you, Dawn.
Namaste.
Thank you, Dawn. Bless.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm happy to see everybody.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Hmm.